Alan Miller donated for a whole year on Patreon, and I'm incredibly grateful for his patronage. Nadier and Tevesh Szat versus Adeline, Arna Kederud, and Sir Vondam. Decided to keep this opener, forgot to hit record, so I was just wittering on to myself for a minute or two before I realised that is a demonic embrace for us, which we can use as a bit of a voltron piece on Nadier. Authority of the Consuls from Adeline is going to bring our creatures into play tapped, so Dauntless Bodyguard is the first one to suffer that fate. Sword of the Animist for the Knight player. And then more life gain in the form of Serra Ascendant. We'll assume that this is a life gain variant of Adeline. I was saying before I hit record that the Umbral Collar Zealot is a new sack outlet from Edge of Eternities that I have very high hopes for. It's not often that we get a good sack outlet printed. A lot of them only trigger once a turn now, but this one is a creature or artifact can be sacrificed to Surveil 1, so you can clear the top cards of your library, load up your graveyard, and it's one of the rare instances in which you can sacrifice an artifact, especially in black. It tends to be a red or colourless ability. Anyway, Sir Vondam has entered play. I think this is the first time I've seen another player play Sir Vondam. This tends to be aristocrats apparently, but I think it works much better as a Anthem Flicker commander. And we see a Wrath already. Toxic Deluge does not want to even contemplate a Serra Ascendant. Thawing Glaciers activated to get a land into play. And we see Nykthos, Shrine to Nyx. We're not going to have any devotion to black for quite a while yet. Not a decent amount anyway, so Umbral Zealot ready for our Tevesh Szat next turn, which is looking a lot more likely after the board wipe. Anox Strike Leader. That makes tokens, and it gives creature tokens indestructible when you sacrifice it. Bajukaborg gets pointed at our empty graveyard for some reason, so does he like the idea of reanimating Dauntless Bodyguard or the Serra Ascendant? Knight of the White Orchid will net our opponent a Plains, and then plays Thawing Glaciers as his land for the turn, followed by a Soul's Attendant, so plenty of life gain like we said. I wonder if it's worth going for the Meat Hut Massacre. We'd need to kill off our own Mana Dork, or our own sack outlet even, so probably not. We've just drawn into Endrick's Tsar, so I think I'll go for that instead, because the creature tokens from our commander are going to come into play tapped with Authority of the Consuls, and we won't be able to protect our Planeswalker, so try and get some Thrall tokens going from this instead. Sir Vondam back into play for a second time already. Arna's colours are still a little bit off thanks to lands like War Room and the Urza's Saga, and so activates the War Room to draw a card, activates Thawing Glaciers again in order to keep himself in land drops. Sunstar Chaplain. At the end step, if you control 2 or more tap creatures, put a plus counter on a creature you control. 2 to remove a plus counter, taps an artifact or creature. Another basic land for us. We don't have any means of making use of the Phyrexian Tower, so no need to show it to our opponents yet. Let's go straight in for Nadier, which will trigger Endrick's Tsar for the first time and make us 6 tapped Thrall tokens, which means our opponent will gain 12 life. And if we want to, we can really go digging with the Umbral Collar Zealot by sacrificing these Thrall tokens. We need to be careful not to go above 7. Or actually not to go above 6. As soon as we hit 7 we'll have to sacrifice the legend, and in doing so we'll be buffing up Nadier, ready for it leaving the battlefield at some point and hopefully leaving some stuff behind, and yeah, we get a player scooping already. Loosely next turn we'll be hopefully stacking the top of the library a little bit with this, like I said, but Demonic Embrace onto our commander to start piling some commander damage over here against the life game player will probably be a good idea. And Arna comes into play for the first time. Arna enters play for the first time. Might be an idea to only get down the Massacre for 2 mana if we're going to start sacrificing lots of Thralls, because then we can pepper away at our opponents. Keeper of the Accord is going to get tokens regularly thanks to all of our Thralls, assuming we can keep lots in play. And so at the end step, let's go for sacrificing some Thrall tokens. And every time we do that, of course, we get a Surveil and a plus counter on Nadier. Swamp can go in the bin. Bubbling Muck, I think, can go away as well. And Bitter Blossom, probably a bit too slow at this point. With this board, we want to be playing creatures into Endrick's Tsar if we can. Or some kind of repetitive card draw of some kind, like a Black Market Connections, I will keep on top. So that means we get to keep some Thralls, and Sacrifice one to the Phyrexian Tower, which is going to be more mana this turn. So we definitely want Demonic Embrace. Our commander is currently a 7/7. If we sacrifice another Thrall, it'll be an 8/8 plus 3 is 11. So that's 2 hits onto an opponent will be commander damage. So we don't necessarily need to get this down without it wiping the board. I don't think it might be useful as a Wrath. So let's just sacrifice a Thrall and hold one back as a chump blocker. And it can be Demonic Embrace onto the Nadier, making that an 11/9 flyer. And let's swing in and see what happens. We're probably just dropping the Black Market Connections next turn. But the good thing about Nadier is we put our opponent in a rough spot with it being a big Voltron creature, because they want to remove it obviously, but when they do that they'll have to answer a bunch of elves. So we do have some aristocrat type effects in here, just in case we can't win in combat. All the life gain in the world isn't going to help them against another hit from our commander next turn. So we're not going to go for anything into the Meat Hut Massacre, we'll just hold that up as a board wipe like I said. I think our little Endrexar and Umbral Kala Zealot is too valuable at the moment. Like I said before, I've had high hopes for this and it's proven itself worthy so far. Have to choose between this and a Visceral Seer, I think. Visceral Seer costs 1 less and is Scry as opposed to Surveil, but I don't think we often care about throwing things in the bin and as opposed to leaving them in the library with Scry, as long as we're clearing stuff off the top of the library. But obviously this in something like a Golgari deck will set up reanimation as well. Anyway, the Saga is going to be sacrificed here, and you can tap it in response to that for mana, but players often forget that, so it just gets traded out for a Soul Ring. And this is clearly an Aura's deck then. Serra's Sanctum hasn't seen any enchantments so far though. Well, there's the first one. Felidar Umbra is going to protect it with Totem Armor, so we might be worried about some commander damage ourselves here. Sword of the Animist will be +1/+1, so currently a 5/5 flying lifelink. And okay, swings in at the life gain player as well. Probably doesn't want to take a couple of hits from our commander. Little does he know we're definitely focusing on Adeline. So doubles up his Sword of the Animist, which is legendary, and gets another Totem Armor as well. So he's got double the protection on that thing. Luckily we do have some Edict effects to defend against Totem Armors. He's still at 50 life, and after that can tap this down for a couple of whites, so there could be a board wipe incoming here. No, instead it is Angelic Destiny, which is not legendary, so yeah, this guy's going to become a threat pretty quickly if we're not careful. Might be worth ignoring the life gain player. Can he just one-shot us next turn is the question. He might be able to. That's a 9/9 already. Well, there's a Maze of Ith to protect him anyway, so that's our mind made up for us, as well as Eldrazi Monument. Flying and Indestructible is just what he needed against us, just as we were looking at going over at this guy anyway. Activates the Thawing Glaciers again, which has very much helped him keep him white mana. So I think before we draw we get rid of this final Thrall and see if we want to surveil anything away. We will be drawing 2 cards at the beginning of the next turn. A Soul Ring isn't of much use to us, so we'll throw that away as well. We've cleared a lot of cards off the top with this sack outlet. That is a Jet Medallion, just more ramp for us. I think we'll go all in with this to make a token. We could see a few tokens leave into Nadier. And there's a Warren Soul Trader to make more tokens. This cares about any token, not just creature tokens, so it's good for treasures as well to be leaving the battlefield. Yeah, maybe we'll be able to one-shot the Esper player. Drop Urborg, fixes the Esper player's mana a little bit with regards to black, but he's got double black already, so probably doesn't matter. I'll just throw that down. And Devotion of 6 to black at the moment. So I think once we've cast 2 black spells, this has paid for itself, so we might as well get it down here. Play the Warren Soul Trader, which will make some more Thralls for us. And gain the white player 6 life, thanks to the double Soul Sister effect. So yeah, the plan at the moment is to try and one-shot this guy, and then Meat Hut Massacre we might be glad that we held on to clear the board, even though we still have to get through Maze of Ith. So if we sacrifice these 4 tokens, we make 4 treasure, so that's +4, +8, +9 when we crack this, is 21 points of commander damage. I suppose we could get down the Tevesh Szat for 4 mana as well. So let's have a look at doing that. We could draw some more cards here. A 4 mana Tevesh Szat, and I'll just go for drawing a couple of cards. Sack a Thrall in order to do that. Gets us into Skull Clamp, so I don't see anything wrong with going Skull Clamp onto the shapeshifter because it doesn't die, and then we can sack that to the soul trader and we still get our treasure token that way. Like I said, we want to be making as many tokens as possible in this list. So sacrifice that, we'll draw us a couple of cards and get us the treasure as well as the buff on Nadier. Just drawing into lands unfortunately. So I might actually sacrifice this after all because we've now got a token generator that can be a sack outlet for us. So with the floating mana, go for Skull Clamp and sacrifice that in order to make us another treasure token, as well as draw us cards obviously. And there we see a Commander's Plate, which will be +3/+3 if we like. Pitiless Plunderer is more tokens for us, which might be worth doing instead. And that'll be 3 mana into the treasure tokens. We've got 3 of those, so we'll go for that. And like we said, every treasure token we crack will put a trigger on the stack for Nadier. And we've cast a creature, of course, so that will put us on 6 Thrall tokens in total. We have to be wary of that with Endrick Sar, because once it's self-destruct trigger is on the stack, there's nothing we can do about it. Showing off how good a commander Endrick Sar can be as well, even though it does take some setting up. Now the question is, does he interfere with this Maze of Ith and protect this guy? Because he doesn't fancy his odds of taking us down on his own. Ideally we'd get into something like a Swiftfoot Boots, some means of protection, so that they can't target our commander. With all the Soul Sister effects, the white player's up to 68 life, but only 1 hit from our commander needed, like we said before. Right, so with the Plunderer down, they gain a bit more life, but we can get double the treasure off any of our creature tokens dying. So let's sacrifice 1 right now, making us 2 treasure. We can then start to Skull Clamp the Thralls, which costs us mana from the treasure tokens, which will continue to buff Nadier, which will now be at 19 power. And the token dying to the Skull Clamp still triggers the Pitiless Plunderer, so Skull Clamp paying for itself at this point. That player decides to scoop, and the other player decides to scoop as well. Alright, well that game wasn't over, but let's see what we were drawing into, as long as we don't get kicked out by the client here. Yeah, see, we weren't really drawing into anything that was going to particularly help us anytime soon. We weren't drawing into any more creatures that would have made more tokens with the Endrick Sar, so our opponents could have played that one out and ganged up on us for a few more turns, I think. I think once we get into that Grave Pact, then that would have made life really difficult for our opponents, but we might have been a couple of turns, or maybe next turn, we would have been able to get that out. Ultimately, we wanted to deal with that Maze of Ith or get some Hexproof / Shroud onto Nadier, but as ever with Magic Online players, our opponents gave up way too easily there. They might have been able to get out from underneath us there. Anyway, hopefully you all enjoyed this one. Mono black tokens / Voltron / aristocrats. It does quite a few things all at once very well. Deck list is in the description as ever if you're interested. Massive thank you to the patrons for their financial support of the channel as ever. I'm Tribalkai. Thank you for watching.